Welcome to the New Level Podcast, everyone. My name is Phil, and I'm your host on the show. On today's episode, we speak with Tim Hughes, co-founder and CEO at DLA Ignite. DLA Ignite enables companies' use of social media within their organizations. While based in England, DLA Ignite is a global company with offices all around the world. Tim also wrote a book called Social Selling: Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers, available on Amazon. And on today's episode, we talk about social selling and how it's changed since organizations have shifted towards digital transformation. We also talk about what major changes we've seen from the modern buyer and seller. Tim also shares some recommendations going into 2021 for B2B businesses and B2C businesses. And also we talk about how can individuals implement automation techniques in social selling without negatively impacting customer experience. So lots to learn on today's episode, guys. Without further delay, my friends, I bring you Tim Hughes.
You are listening to the New Level Podcast, where humans talk about automation. We bring you industry experts and share new ideas that help elevate your business. Join your hosts, Philip Agib and Teresa Foreman, on the journey of automation technology.
All right, so let's jump right into it. Welcome to the New Level Podcast. Tim, my name is Phil. I'm your host on the show, and I'm always joined by my awesome co-host, Teresa.
Hi, Tim. Happy to have you.
Hi, Teresa. Hi. How you doing?
So to share a bit of background about Tim, so Tim has over 30 years of experience in sales, marketing, business development, and has worked for a multinational computer software company called Oracle, and has really just developed some awesome programs for organizations and business schools about social selling in the digital world. So we'll jump right into the first question here, Tim. So what is, or what does social selling mean to you?
Social selling means, well, first thing that the thing that it isn't is, which is selling on social. The thing is no one likes being sold to. So, and the whole point of having social media and the internet is the fact that we can go online and find out about things that we want to buy without actually talking to a salesperson. So to answer your question, what we have found is that the buying process has changed. Whereas in the past, when I was first in sales, the only way that you could buy what I sold was to come to me and buy it. Now you can go around me and find all the information about the products and services online, and actually probably even transact the sale online. You don't need to talk to salespeople. So what we need to do as salespeople is to be active where our clients and prospects are, which is on social media and online, and having conversations with them and engaging with them and creating insightful content for them. And that's what social selling is.
And so, Tim, you work with a number of companies in a number of different sectors. What are you hearing from those company leaders? What are their biggest challenges?
I think that there's a number of challenges. One is people are actually scared of what's going on in the world, not just the pandemic, but the change in the buying process. And leaders are often scared to actually make the transition to having a social organization. That's certainly what we're seeing. And we get a lot of people that say that they're all over social at the moment. And the thing is that they're not. And the reason for that is people treat social as a tactic. Everybody's on social, yes. Everybody has some sort of social program. But what they do is they treat it like a tactic. I was talking to an organization today, and they previously had sent me an article. They're an Oracle partner. They're an Oracle reseller. They'd got a piece of content on oracle.com, which they were really hyped about. So they sent me a link and they said, here's the content. And they got 40 likes on LinkedIn, except that 35 of those likes were from the company that had got the article on oracle.com. So what happens is that, and most people on LinkedIn, their network is of ex-colleagues and recruitment consultants. So the fact that you're liking something and you don't have a network, in effect, they're living in an echo chamber. And this is one of the things that we see all time after time, where people will say, the VP of sales will put something out, and they ask everybody to like it, and nothing happens. And this is actually a cost to your business. It's not a profit. And this isn't actually social selling. It's just a random act of social. And what we do is that we teach people about stop using social as a tactic, but to actually use it as a strategy.
Right. I love that analogy of the echo chamber, right? Because you often see these vanity metrics coming back, and we got these likes, and we got these shares, and we got these views, and usually it's internal or it's one of your partners. And the distinction that you've made between social media as a tactic versus social selling as a strategy. Why do you think some of the companies that either that you're talking to or you're viewing in the market are so resistant to embrace social selling as part of their go-to-market strategy?
Well, there's a constant narrative in the marketing industry that's been around for years, which is that we need to be. It's about broadcast, and there's an expectation still that what we will do is in effect stand on top of a building with a megaphone and interrupt people and broadcast our message, and the message will be buy my product because it's great. And the fact of the matter is that actually we're totally immune to this as buyers, and so we just don't either see it or read it or hear it or smell it or whatever the message is. And unfortunately, what happens is that people carry on still doing it. We've actually just done some research. Well, we've done it in association with one of our clients, Telstra, and what we've seen is that human content, so content about ourselves, actually has 7 times has 7 times engagement that what you would expect what comes from, say, a company or something like that. Mm-hmm. Now, one of the things that we teach people is that often we hear one of the things that you said, which was that people see likes and comments as basically being vanity metrics. In fact, likes and comments are actually a way. What we do is that we actually teach people how to harvest all those. So, for example, we have a particular example that we use when we talk to people, where one of my colleagues posted something. It's a picture of his son and him at the beach. It's in Scotland, so it's not like a Miami or something like that. It's cold. And he's with his son, who's 16, and it's in April, and his son's got a COVID birthday, and he wants to be with his mates, but he can't be. He's with his boring dad, and so Eric takes some photos. He puts those up on social, and we've all seen something like that. Now, 2 things. One is that only took 10 minutes to create as a piece of content. The other thing is that Eric got 184 leads off the back of that. He got 6 C-level meetings. He's had 2 proposals and 1 purchase order. Wow. Now, we always show that as an example, and that's really when people say, so what's social selling? A lot of people actually see a lot of posts like that of people at the beach or something like that. But then when you ask them, so what do you get from it? They say, well, nothing. It's like, well, that's actually a cost to your business. What you need is a methodology for you to actually be able to go to social, know exactly what you're doing, go through that process, and then make sure you're able to, let's say, harvest the opportunity that you get when you actually are doing the engagement or the posting.
So, and so like digital transformation, right? A lot of this social selling is happening online, obviously, in digital conversations. And we've heard so much about digital transformation, for over the last decade. And it's, we've almost become cynical about it. But COVID has pushed digital transformation in a way that, nothing else has in the years before it, in my opinion. And so how are you seeing social selling changing since companies, whether over the last few years or particularly the last year, have really made that push to digital transformation?
Yeah, it's a really good point. I was on the phone with someone today, and they said that digital wasn't new. They had a digital watch, and he was about a similar age to me. So digital watches came out 30 years ago. what the thing that we're seeing is that if you look at all of the research, Gartner, McKinsey, MIT, the buyer has moved onto social. And there's now what 53% of the world's population that are on social media. And what we've seen is that has accelerated. And we've seen not necessarily a queue, but a lot of people that have suddenly said, we need to be in the business of, whether it's social selling or remote selling or digital selling or modern selling. There seems to be lots of different terms for the same thing. But we've seen a requirement from the buyers have made that move over to using social. And I mean, Gartner just recently came up with a webinar the other week, and they said that that sellers need to be where their buyers are now, not where their buyers used to be. And we've seen that switch probably took place for us in the UK. We had a lockdown in March, and then we had a lockdown in October, and then we're still in lockdown at the moment. And I think certainly in Europe, what happened was that the lockdown that happened in March, everybody thought we would come out and everything would be okay and we would go back to normal. And it's when we went into that second lockdown in October where everybody went, okay, this is obviously made a massive change to whatever normal was. And I think there was a realization at that point that we're not going to go back. My business partner had a reoccurrence of his cancer this year. And, you know, his view is, why would he go and have face-to-face meetings with people? Because that puts him at risk. And that's just an example of, you know, he can sit at home, he can do exactly what he needs to do. He doesn't need to go into an office and do it.
And with the end of virtual, excuse me, with the end of in-person events, right, and moving to virtual events, I imagine so much of this conversation is happening online that used to happen either at an event or face-to-face. You know, if the last year has proven anything out, is you don't actually have to get on a plane to go talk to people.
Yes, and it's cheaper. I mean, if you think about all the companies that have, I remember when I was working in my corporate role, we actually had one quarter where we actually said you're not allowed to travel, and we gained an extra 15% margin. Yeah. Now, the country that I work for had $1 billion turnover. While it was only one quarter, you can do the maths in terms of what 15% additional margin was. And, you know, if you think about that in terms of a margin gain across the whole of business, why would you want your sales team and your employees to go back to traveling? Apart from the fact that they may want to, it doesn't make any business sense, because actually we've had a worldwide experiment which just proves that we can run business like this.
Yeah, it's interesting because earlier you brought up the cost of trying to sell online and not getting the engagements. Like, I don't know if you guys remember the last time you were at a trade show and you spent, I don't know, $10, $15, $20,000 to be there. How many people are you really engaging with, right, for that cost, right? So it's definitely changed a lot of things, and I also want to bring up the idea that yes, it does change the buyer and the seller activities, but also just collaboration within organizations or within partners. I think that just the collaboration between companies now has completely changed. And, you know, us at Vantry, we've seen an impressive amount of better quality collaboration within our organization, with organizations that are partnering with us. And yeah, we're definitely seeing, you know, our bottom line being affected with that in a positive way. But speaking more specifically about the modern buyer and seller, what major changes can we help our audience identify, Tim?
Well, I think that you know, there has been this move away from face to face, even though we're able to still meet people through the power of technology. In the past, there was this situation where people interrupted you, the cold call, the email, even advertising. And what we're seeing is that, slowly demise of those things. I mean, HubSpot, for example, they've actually admitted, even though they sell email marketing, that they're not doing email marketing anymore. They're actually using content. I mean, it's quite an amazing webinar to watch, where the CMO of HubSpot basically says, we're engaging people with insights. It's like, well, I've been saying that for a few years. Glad you caught up, HubSpot. And then what happened is they cold call me the next day. So we have seen this move. And I think that there's a realization, or that there has to be a realization from companies, is that we have got this filter in ourselves, and we are now become immune to corporate messages. And while some people in marketing go back to their desks and basically immediately implement that there needs to be something to do with the product or the brand, when we sit in our daily lives, we actually don't like that, and we actually ignore it. And there's a massive change that has to take place, because there's a lot of vested interest in the world to actually not believe that is happening, even though the research, certainly the research that we're doing, even though we're not quite as powerful as the Gartners and the MITs and the McKinseys, when the research that shows that we're doing with our clients shows that that's the case. The unique that we have now within our organization is our people. It's what the only unique selling point are those people's experiences and what they can share with their audience. And what we do, and especially in the pandemic, is we're looking for people like ourselves that we can form a bond with. And we're doing that on social. And that's really one of the things that we're seeing the changing. So what people are looking for is authentic, and I know it's become a bit of an overused word, but we're looking for human-to-human connection on social media. And if you're doing that, what you'll find is that people will walk towards you rather than walk away from you. And that is the transformation that can take place and is taking place right now.
Today's episode is sponsored by Vantry Systems. Vantry is a B2B integration provider based out of Montreal, Canada, specializing in all ERP integration needs while delivering unparalleled service, advanced technologies, and expert advice, all with a humanistic approach. If you're tired of getting the runaround from your existing provider, please visit www.vantry.com for more information. Now, back to the show.
Tim, you said something that, really resonated, and I know resonates. It's just, part of the human condition. Nobody likes being sold to, and what they like even less is is talking to a robot. And so you mentioned, the authenticity, and so important. Yeah, a bit of an overused word, but still really critical that genuine bond, right, comes through. What would you say to companies who either don't have the time or the budget or whatnot to really invest in with a human resource? Is there a way that any part of the social selling can be automated? Or are there any automation techniques that can be used for companies who maybe just don't have the same amount of resources, but that won't impact ultimately the customer experience?
It's a really good point. I see this as basically a human to human thing. We're a small business, we've got 15 people, and there are 78,000 seconds in a day. So time we have, it's priority that we don't have. And I think that there's things like, scheduling is okay. I schedule my tweets that go out. So, even though I'm talking to you, I'm tweeting at the same time. But I do go in every evening and check to see the interactions that happened on tweets. So anybody who's watching this, if you want to test me, please come to Twitter and say hello. And within 24 hours, I'll say hello back. None of us in the DLA Ignite team automate anything on LinkedIn. And in fact, if you do, it's against clause 8.2 of their terms and conditions. And they're really against any sort of automation, similar to the likes of Instagram that have really shut down on people automating and scheduling stuff. So to answer your question, if people are not doing this, they are not relevant in the world of sales and marketing today, and they have to find some way of doing this. And I know people often say to me, yeah, but you're a big company. I say, well, big company, we got 15 people, yes. But we all post something every day, because this is the way. We're an organization. We're a small organization. We need to prospect. We need to be constantly looking for new business. And all of us, including the CEO, myself, we prospect. And we prospect by connecting to people, growing our networks, and creating content. And this is an example of content that we're creating.
Yeah, it's really interesting when you present it like that, because if it is something that your organization believes in, then yeah, it does need to be part of your culture. And if each employee believes in sharing little tidbits of things that either they're learning or they're experiencing, and it's truly authentic on social media, then yeah, it becomes like a natural social selling. I don't want to say machine, but like system.
I mean, one of my team put out his daughter was supposed to be creating him a graphic, and she didn't provide him with the graphic. So he happened to be coaching someone today, and one of the things that we go through with people is about what is it they want to be famous for. And that can be different from each particular salesperson, because it may be that they work in a particular vertical or a different marketplace. Anyway, he was talking to the person he was coaching, and they said, well, I want to be more Tiffany's than Walmart. And because he said, his rates are higher than other people, but he only needs one customer. He doesn't need a million of them. And so that was something that resonated with Eric on the team. So immediately he basically put that out as a post on LinkedIn. It didn't take him very long. It doesn't have to take you very long. It took him 10, 15, 20 minutes to put that out. But that's just a different way of looking at what you do and realizing that pretty much everything that you do is a piece of content. So if there's anybody watching this and they think this is any good, it's very easy for them to say, hey, I've just watched a really great, take a screenshot. So I've just really watched a great webinar, podcast, tag the three, the people in it, and put that out. And that's a piece of content.
Right.
So it doesn't have to take. People often think that content is a 2,000 word white paper. Yeah. Content can be something that's actually very quick and consumable. And actually, if it's bite sized, it actually works just as well.
It's even better, right? If it's not too overwhelming like that. And it's just, I think what I love about what you just said is people hear content and they're like, oh, geez, I don't have time to create that asset, right? When really sometimes it's just a point of view. And maybe it's a point of view on someone else's asset. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's, what, if you give me a 2,000 word white paper, I'll basically put it in that folder on my desktop, which says I'll read one day when I've got the time. And I never do have the time. If I give you a 300 word blog, you'll read it now.
Right.
And that's the difference. Even if you say like a point of view, I mean, what Eric has created is 150, 200 words based on, I was coaching somebody, they said this, it really resonated with me. I just wanted to share that with you. What do you think? It doesn't have to be heavy duty stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
And what's interesting too is, we're talking about the experience of the reader, but I don't know, we've all been in the sales and marketing space for a long time, and I'm sure there's a ton of people out there that feel this. As soon as you're asked to write a 1,000-word blog post, or some kind of a case study or an analysis, you're kind of like, oh my God, like this is going to take me forever, right? And by hearing now that the actual reader is not interested in that, it's just such a relief. You could just speak your mind, obviously within, the values of your organization, but to just know as a writer, you could just speak your mind, and the readers are going to appreciate that more than what you're being told to do. before, that to me as a writer, a marketer is great news.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to the next question, Tim. So on the New Level podcast, our goal is to have discussions around automation technology trends and how they affect humans. Okay, so that's our goal. Obviously, I'm the sales director at Vantry, and we take a very unique approach to delivering our services, always putting the humanistic approach first. And it's not something you see very often in the technology space. These technology companies are very big organizations. They're very well structured, but sometimes the experience, the buying experience going through those structures can be daunting. So we wanted to know, with your experience working in the Oracle space, and what you know now, what's your opinion on this unique method, and also maybe help some of our audience that own technology companies or work within technology companies to really shift the way that they're doing things?
Well, I can't speak for Oracle. I've not worked there for nearly 5 years, but I have an understanding of the technology sector. And I think that as long as I can remember, there's always been, in the sales process, there's always been a relationship that you have. It's a one-to-one relationship that you have in B2B is about people. The way that we often see it is that in B2C, like if you go and buy a pair of shoes, I can't go and buy a pair of shoes right now, but if I did, I don't know the name of the salesperson. Whereas if you're buying a B2B product, you will know the name of the salesperson, and trust is an element of that purchase.
Mm-hmm.
I usually describe it as in the days when you could get together and have barbecues. I usually describe the situation where it's Saturday, you've got people around, you're having a barbecue, and your phone rings, and you see it's your customer. You're going live that weekend. What do you do? Are you going to pick up the phone, or are you just going to push it out to voicemail? And obviously, what the clients are doing is the clients are looking for people that are going to pick it up and say, okay, what's the problem, and I'll sort it out.
Mm-hmm.
And we buy. It's not about liking somebody, because actually we've all bought from people that we don't like. But the fact of the matter is, I've bought cars from people that I don't like, but I trust them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the difference. And the thing that we need to be building is trust. We're now in a situation where we know that our buyer is on social media and they're online. So how, as a sales force, can we be in a situation, not running around trying to be liked, because being liked actually doesn't help us, but building trust?
Yeah.
There was a great quote from Gartner from one of their webinars the other week, which basically said that sales leaders are shifting their headcount to the salespeople that they know are digital savvy. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's a headhunter, and he says for him he does all of his, he gets approached by an organization to say, we're looking for this type of person, go out and find them. And when he searches and does his search on LinkedIn, if they don't have a number of things like a photo, their job details filled in, and some of the basics, he just moves on. Mm-hmm. Because he knows that person isn't digital savvy. And for him, it's not just about placing the person. The person has to stick for 6 months. So he's in a situation where he needs to making sure that the people that they're sticking actually understand the way the business works today, not necessarily the way it worked 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's interesting. And it makes me think of when you receive a phone call from a friend and you clearly see their name on your phone, and then when you get a 1-800 number and you're like, who the heck is this, right? You're not going to pick up that phone call if it's blocked or whatever. So it's just about this sense of transparency within the social lens, that I think is really important for people. They just want to know who they're working with.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, iOS 13 was fantastic on Apple, because with iOS 13, what happens whenever you get a call, if it's not in your address book, it goes straight through to voicemail. So I screen all of my calls, and if someone wants to talk to me, they'll leave a voicemail. You know, if it's really that important. And if it's someone that says, "Hey, do you want to buy a new? Do you want to? I'm approaching you about, I can save you 20% off your phone or whatever," I can just delete it.
Right, right. I love that notion of like versus trust, right? Like we've heard that quote from a number of business leaders that have said, you know, over time that have said, I don't care if I'm liked, I'd rather be respected, or I'm not here to be loved, I'm here to be respected. That ties into this. So looking forward to this year, next year, Tim, what would you say, you know, for social selling, what would your recommendations be for some of our listeners, let's say from a B2B versus a B2C perspective?
So I generally work in business to business, though we do have BMW as a client, which is B2C, but it's more of a considered purchase. It's more likely, you know, you're more likely to consider buying an X5 than you are going out and buying a pair of shoes. First world problems, I know, but yeah.
There's a stat.
And I mean, you know, Gartner is saying that you know, you need to have a core understanding of what it means to be selling virtually. I think we have to realize that while there may be an element of going back to face-to-face, we don't know what that will be, because of the fact that you know, if we look at vaccinations, will a company let you on site if you've not been vaccinated? Would you go and have a meeting with a customer who hasn't been vaccinated? There's all these things. There's a whole melting pot of human resource and issues that are being thrown up with the pandemic. So I think we need to make sure that we have to realize that we're going to be talking to people like this for the near future, and there's going to be some customers. I mean, there was some research from Accenture in the biopharma marketplace, so salespeople selling to doctors, where they said that only 10% of them wanted to go back to having face-to-face meetings. So even if it's 20% or 30%, that's still 70% of people not wanting to go back to the face-to-face meetings that they had before. And I think from a buyer perspective, what having these type of meetings means is that you there's not that you don't have the traveling time, or you and salespeople in effect have to get to the point, because you know, it's very much easier to terminate the call. But there's three things that each people that watch this, they need to take away. The first thing is that you need to have a buyer-centric profile on social media. What does that mean? That means your profile is not about you. It's what you're trying to do is get your buyers, the people in your territory, looking at you and going, I think that Philip looks like a really great person. I'm actually going to contact him because I think he can help me. So rather than having, oh yeah, I've made President's Club 4 times in a row, and once I get my teeth into a customer, either I die or they'll die first. Strangely enough, buyers don't tend to approach that type of person.
So strange.
I know sales directors always tell me that's the type of person I want to recruit. Yeah, I know, but buyers don't generally like that sort of thing. And the fact that you laughed. The second thing you need is a network. So there's a lot of people out there that will sell you contacts on LinkedIn. This isn't about having contacts. This is about having a network. So this is, you know, I'm sitting here because of something that happened on social, and here I am. And that's how we get all of our business, is through the network. Don't forget, every time you connect to somebody, this is an opportunity for you to have a conversation. And we've kind of lost the art of the conversation. You know, when you connect to people, don't try and sell to them, because they won't be interested. It's about having the art of connecting to people and then forming a conversation, but realizing not everybody that you're connecting to will actually be wanting to buy. I'm currently working with a supply chain software company at the moment, and they reckon that within each account that they work on, there will be probably 100 people that will actually have an input into the decision.
Wow.
So that means they need to be connected to 100, 200, 300, I don't know, but at least more than 100 people. Every time you connect, it's that opportunity to have a conversation. But social allows you to contact and connect to people at scale. To do that using a telephone would be horrendous. Trying to find everybody's telephone number or email address is just a nightmare. It's just quicker to do it on social. The third thing that you need is content. And we teach all of the salespeople that come through our programs how to create their own content. A bit like what we talked about before, snackable content, humanized content, content that talks about the business issues that the customers have at the moment. And the reason for that is what you're trying to do is actually build a contact and a connection with your buyer. We want people to look at it and look at it and go, Teresa looks like a really interesting person. The person may not be in the market for buying right now, but what they'll do is they'll clock the fact that you look interesting. They'll be in a meeting and say, hey, we're looking for some automation. Who do I contact? I know, Philip is the guy. You need to, where is he? I'm not quite sure. Philip something. Oh yeah, I'll find him for you. You know, and it's about having that connection. And as I talked about earlier on, we're using content as a way that is already driving leads, meetings, and telephone calls. And your sales team should be doing that as well.
Very interesting. And to your point about the network and the content, is I saw a statistic, I think it was provided by Salesforce, and they showed the percentage of close rate from all of the social or channels that exist, right? You can imagine, let's say, email marketing being a channel, social media being a channel, and I don't know, word of mouth being a channel. We talk about network, word of mouth was something like 50 times more effective than email marketing.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show that it is about who you know. It is about the network. Obviously, the quality of the service you provide, but it's like you said, the quality of your profile as a person or a company, then the network that you're in, and then obviously the content that you're sharing. So it's very, very effective.
Yes. So I mean, if you take, I'm sitting here being interviewed by you two. And I think it was your colleague Emily. Is it Emily that came across me? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the mistake that people make on social is that they go, right, Emily, right, I'm going to try and sell to her. Now, Emily isn't the person who's going to buy from me. Right. But Emily is the person that can basically say, hey, Philip, I think that you should interview Tim to come on your podcast. Mm-hmm. So this was a way, so that we see there's being three types of people. There are people that will come buy from you. The other type of people are people that can probably refer you, where you say, well, I can't buy what you do, but my brother-in-law is just about to buy this. Mm-hmm. Or have you thought about talking to, I was on a call this morning where a person basically has referred me on to somebody. And the third type of person is actually people that we call it having a big mouth. But what they're willing to do is that they go, Philip, I really like what you're doing and I like your content. I'm not actually going to buy from you, but what I will do is share your content with my network. Yep. Right. And this is about how you can take your influence and share that through other people's network. And that's how we talk about selling, not just selling to our network, but selling through our network. And it's about, the more that you can share your influence through your network, the bigger it is. And it works exponentially. What you'll find is that there's so the average person on LinkedIn has 930 connections. If you connect to 100 people, your network has just grown by 93,000. So that it's an exponential effect that if someone takes it and shares it through their network, you're being seen by more and more people. But don't think of it as being like a small amount. It's a big amount. And that's the reason why there's the three types.
I think the word of mouth completely makes sense. I mean, we would all just, humans would rather take their peer's word for it, right? And be influenced by a peer than just take at word what a company says. And I think one of the biggest mistakes I see among our client base, to your first point around knowing who you're talking to, profiling your audience, like everybody is in such a hurry just to get to the doing, and they want to skip the planning. And so they're, taking the time to build out thoughtful and strategic personas can really help drive, like, where are they? How are they consuming their content? How do they want to engage in conversations? And that differs from persona to persona. And
yeah, one of the things you have to be very, very careful about personas is that this is a person that you want to sell to.
That's right.
And we've already agreed that we don't like being sold to.
Right.
So what happens is that we sit there and we actually craft these things about, and actually what happens today is actually people buy, and it's not about selling. So you do need to be, we don't use personas for that particular reason, of the fact that if I thought you as an organization were sitting thinking about how you could manipulate me to buy, I wouldn't buy from you.
Yeah, I think, well, in my experience, it's that line of authenticity, right? So as long as personas aren't being used to manipulate, as you just said, but are sort of, guidelines around the type of content that this particular target might be interested in seeing. Do you know what I mean? It's certainly not, certainly none of us want to be manipulated or feel like we're manipulating anybody. Some type of roadmap or some type of understanding, about who you're talking to, that group you're talking to, can help. But I take your point, like not in a schmarmy, used car salesman way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think there's a fine line there, because you want to make sure that the content you're putting out is relative to the pain points that your audience is experiencing, but at the same time you want to make sure that that's not coming across as I know everything that you're experiencing and you fit in this box, and then you take every approach with the same angle. You have to be fluid. And I think by putting the person first, it helps you to have that human element that I think everyone's looking for. So on a separate topic, 2020 was a very, very important year from a where companies had to take a stance on a lot of social issues. So we're talking about social selling. There's a lot of social issues, and these companies had to take a stance. There was things like racial injustice, inequality, climate action, income gap. So what's your advice for companies who haven't taken the leap to share their positions, and how can those companies stay true to their brand in the process?
I think that those issues have always existed. It's just that 2020, for some reason, it seemed to magnify them.
Yeah.
What we're seeing is that there is a need from leadership within the organization to take a stand on these things. Most importantly, we need to see leaders in organizations leading from the front and in effect being on social media. Mm-hmm. And being the person, the North Star in that organization. Research shows that employees actually like their CEOs to be online and visible and on social. Research shows that people want to work for companies that where the CEOs are online and on social. And great examples of that are people like James Watt, who's the CEO of Brewdog. Brewdog is a Scottish brewery company, and also Bernard Looney, who's the CEO of BP. And they have shown some great leadership in looking at regardless of what you think about BP, it's not the most sustainable company in the world. But what Bernard has said is that they want to move to be sustainable. They want to be in a position where they are carbon neutral. James Watt at Brewdog, basically because of the fact in Scotland their pubs aren't able to be open, he actually offered the pubs to the to the Scottish government and said you can open them as vaccination centres.
Mm-hmm.
It's about understanding, and we all know what the issues of the day are. It's about taking them and then using those as a and shining those out through the CEOs. And I know that a lot of CEOs would be concerned about it, but unfortunately, kind of life has moved on, and there's an expectation now that this is the norm rather than the exception. A 25-year-old friend said to me once about people on social media, well, people not on social media, they said, if someone's not on social media, what have they got to hide?
Interesting.
And that is, we can sit here as I'm looking at you as people that are all over 25. But you've got to understand that the eldest millennial's now 30, and with Gen Z coming through as well. There's a completely different attitude to the way that social media is used. And Gen Z, for example, they grew up on social media. They've not lived in a time when there wasn't the internet.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we forget about that, and we have to change with the times.
Different expectations of privacy, right? In
Yes.
those generational attitudes, because privacy is not meant to them what it's meant to us.
Yes. Yeah.
It is slightly over 25, Tim.
You are. I know that you're just. I know. Last week,
a lot, but it's okay.
I know. It was your birthday last week, your 26th birthday. Yeah. But the privacy issue is that in the people that are growing up with social media, there was never any privacy.
Yeah.
Right.
Everything. I've been out to parties and stuff like that, but nobody took any photos. There's no evidence. Right. Whereas, young people today, there is evidence that they went out to parties and they got drunk, and you can't hide from that. So there is no privacy, and which is why there's an they look at people and go, well, why aren't you on social media? Why are you not leading the organization and talking to, why is it that we're leaving this to internal comms? This should be an external communication.
Right. It should be systemic, right, throughout the organization. It should be sort of a culture.
That's it. I was just going to say, it is a culture, and if you think of who determines the culture, it starts with the founder of the company, and you're referring to brands versus companies versus people, and standing up at the top of a building with a megaphone, like, who is to be that person? It's the CEO can take that role, and I think the result is you will not only influence the culture of your organization, but also your network. You have to understand your position within your network, and so you're talking about the CEO of BrewDog, like, he took a stance in his network, right?
Yes.
And that's what's helping his organization and many other organizations. So I think it's almost like a duty that you have to share your thoughts and help people within your network, just like how they might help you. So I think there's some reciprocity there.
Yeah, and the thing is that when we look at people on social media, we can see what that organization is like. And I think that people just don't seem to understand that I can look up your LinkedIn profile and I can jump to a conclusion about what you're like, and I can jump to a conclusion what your organization is like, and it's the same. And people seem to just put their heads in the sand and go, it doesn't matter, or for some reason or other they can't see that, but we can. And what they should be doing, because you walk into any organization and most of them say, oh yeah, for us it's the culture is the thing that's really important with us. Okay, well, I can't see that culture out externally.
Yeah.
Where are you talking about the culture? Where does it say about the culture on your social profiles? Well, it doesn't. Well, why not? Oh, well, we don't trust our employees to do this. Your CEO can sign off $1 million or $1 billion or whatever it is, and you don't trust them. You allow them to go and stand in front of clients and pitch millions and millions of pounds worth of deals, but you don't trust them on social media. How does that work?
There's something wrong there, right?
Yeah.
On the topic of culture, so, historically, like, I want to say historically, I mean, like, up to a year ago, leaders within organizations have had to focus on some of the things you just mentioned. What's the personality? What's the culture? What's the tone of voice? All that stuff. Over the last year, we talked about, at the top of the call, we talked about the impact of COVID, right? And so now, organizational leaders have that added challenge of trying to, and to a large degree, virtually help manage the well-being of their staff, their physical well-being, but also their mental health, right? Their mental well-being, because people, some are thriving and some are surviving, right? And struggling in some cases to do that. So what are your thoughts, Tim, around how business leaders can be more mindful of the state their employees are in, their well-being, the well-being of their network, their customers, their partners, et cetera, while still driving the business forward?
Oh, I think it's really important. I think that we went through a stage, certainly after we went into the pandemic in about March, where what we did was we replicated what we did in the office. And there's a lot of leaders that have struggled where they're sitting at their desk and they go, "Where's Philip? How come he's taken 2 hours for lunch break?" It's like, and we're now in a situation where we have to trust our people. Yeah. Whether you call it tasks or whatever, this is what they got to do, and they either do it or they don't. There's some companies that have put out these things where you can't work between 12 and 1. But sometimes people say, actually, I want to work between 12 and 1 because, in the morning, at the moment, our schools are not, there's nobody in schools. So every parent is homeschooling their kids as well as working.
Right.
So, you've got this situation where you can be homeschooling parents, you're working, you've got elderly people that are shielding. Both of my parents are shielding. And they're not supposed to actually go out and actually go and get food. So we've got all these other things and all these other responsibilities that have come onto us. And actually, are they important? Yes, they are. And we need to make sure that we're providing that as a priority and supporting them. And I think that what we're going to see is a change taking place. And I'm already talking to leaders about. What we've done is that we've implemented the factory system. So if you think about the way that life used to work, is that we were butchers and bakers and candlestick makers, and we actually worked within our house. Right. And then what happened was that someone invented the factory, and we went to the factory. So rather than making a shoe for somebody, we made the left shoe, and then we handed it to somebody else, and they made the right shoe, and then they put them in a box. And all of the processes that we have in place right now are based on that factory method that we've now had for, I think, 200 years. And what we need to recognize is that we now have a whole bunch of individuals. I can see into Philip's house, I can see into your house, you can see into my house. I was on a call just now where the person's cat came by, and we all had we're all used to those things that take place. That merger between individual and home life has taken place. And what we need to do as leaders is making sure that we're giving people the space to do what they need to do, and do what they need to do as a priority, which is be a family, be a mother, be a father, be a brother, all those things, and work with us as well. And I think that probably is the biggest change that's taken place over the last year, more than maybe whether we're going back to the office or not.
I am seeing that change happen a lot in my own network. Like I've been having conversations with leaders in my professional network for years, because I've had no issues with staff on my team working from home for years, even before COVID.
We have a virtual organization.
And and I mean, yes, be in the office, but if you're telling me you need to work from home, and I've been challenged by some of the leaders in my network going, "Oh, well, how do you know that they're not doing laundry or not doing what they're supposed to do?" And I said, because I hire A-team adults, and I hire them for outcomes and getting their job done, And so, let's be thoughtful about where they're working. And if they're telling me they need to work from home tomorrow, this week, for the next couple of weeks to get, for whatever reason, to get their output done and their outcomes done, I don't have a problem with that. And, I would say to them, you have a bigger problem than this conversation if you don't think your people are going to get the outcomes done. And now, fast forward to COVID, and it's actually, in a lot of cases, the data's bearing out that they're wrong, right? Like, productivity in a lot of cases has gone up, not down, and not always. It's not a blanket rule. The world is still moving. Not that there aren't issues, to your point, that there's this whole change management thing going on, but generally the world has borne out that the world turns, productivity happens, businesses keep running, regardless of whether you're working from home, wherever you are. And so I think that's one of the positive things that's going to come out of COVID, is that businesses and business leaders are going to be more open to a flexible working environment.
Yeah. So I need to make a confession. I did the laundry today.
That's okay.
That's one of my. It's one of my jobs.
I bake bread from 8:30 in the morning to 9:10. Right. But it was ready at 9:10. Yes, I did. I'm not going to show it.
And I'll be prepping dinner over lunch, but I'm a happier person for it. And I think, Tim, something you said, particularly, it's International Women's Week, in particular as a woman, like, so many of the women in my network are either overwhelmed, to your point, because they're trying to hold down jobs and homeschool children. I totally get that. And at the same time, they also are grateful to be able to, leave their desk and be right in their kitchen, not have to commute an hour or two a day. That's taking time away from their family. Or they are able to, like, in between meetings, throw, a load of laundry on, which we shouldn't be, let's talk about it. This is life. Yeah. You know what I mean? I think that's a really great point, that you can find balance in a different way. I mean, once the kids are all back in school, because that's a very challenging for two parents at home trying to, if they have younger elementary aged, early high school age children, it's challenging, particularly if they don't have independent workspaces. I know a number of people, I'm sure you both do as well, that are moving into bigger homes because their existing homes can accommodate both spouses with an independent working space and children doing online learning. And it's change management and the new way of working. And we'll evolve. I mean, that's what humans do best. We evolve.
I hear one of the biggest things that is Googled at the moment is what on earth is long division?
I have to tell Tim, like, my children are much older. My youngest is in university, so I'm well past that. But I learned long division, right? I learned it that way, and my oldest did. The second and third, I can't even describe how they were taught. And they'd come home, and I'm like, I don't know how to do what you're showing me, but I'll show you how I learned. And both of them said, that way is so much easier. Why don't we still do it that way? I'm like, I don't know. This is the way I learned. But yeah, it's hard right now for a lot of people. It's hard, even though in some ways it's not as hard in some facets. But yeah.
I think that's a great subject to finish off the episode with. I think we need to remind ourselves that not just our buyers are humans, but also our employees, and we just need to offer them, everyone in our network, support, whether you're a family, a partner, an employee, a customer. Everyone just needs support nowadays. But Tim, thank you so much for coming on to the New Level podcast. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you always. But I wanted to give you an opportunity to maybe, share with the audience how they can get in touch with you, learn about some of the programs you're offering, and you also have a book. Talk to us about the book.
I do. Well, I have two, but the one we've been talking about today is Social Selling Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers, which is available on Amazon worldwide. And it's sold over 5,500 copies. My publisher.
Bring it into the screen a little bit more.
Oh, sorry.
There you go. I just wanted to make sure everyone got to see it.
So it's available on Amazon worldwide. I'm Timothy Tim Hughes on LinkedIn, and I'm Timothy_Hughes on Twitter, but please connect with me. If anyone does connect with me, please send me a little connection request that says that they saw me on this particular show, because I get like loads and loads and loads of people connecting to me, and I don't want, I want to make sure that anybody that sees me, and if they were inspired, then I know it's from here.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for your time.
You're welcome.
For taking the time out of your busy day to speak to Teresa and I, and we hope to have you back again very soon.
Thank you.
You are listening to the New Level Podcast, where humans talk about automation. We bring you industry experts and share new ideas that help elevate your business. Join your hosts, Philip Agib and Teresa Foreman, on the journey of automation technology.